Hey everybody, I'm Bob Baker with Jazz Guitar today, and I am being joined by, I don't know, how do I describe you guys? The brain trust at Berkeley? I don't know. How would you like me to Larry is the past chair. Is that not correct?
Yeah.
And I understand you're from my friend Howard Paul, who says hello to all three of you. And I understand you're still on the faculty full time. Is that correct?
Actually not. I retired from Berkeley and I'm just actually teaching online.
Oh, you're hanging
A lot
out.
of the courses in Berkeley online.
Okay. Well, Howard said that you are a really nice guy and a great player, and he said all kinds of wonderful things about you. And I'm not going to make any
that's
jokes.
very
There's no back butt gotcha thing. He just flat out, he's a big fan of yours. So I thought I could.
Oh, great. I'm a fan of his too.
Oh, great. And
Right.
then, but Kim, you are the current chair. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. And Cheryl's title, we've talked about this a million times. You're the assistant to the chair. Is that how
I'm
that
the
goes?
assistant to these two mad geniuses.
Yeah, I was going to say, keeping that together must be.
I am just here at their service to, implement their amazing thoughts and ideas.
So just a couple of things that, for people that don't know, Berkeley is the largest guitar program at university or college level in the world.
Mhm.
I think you have close to 1,000 students there. Is that not correct?
It fluctuates any given time between the high 800s and around 1,000.
Yeah.
A little over 1,000. So yeah.
To give
So-
people perspective on that, and I won't mention names, but there are programs out there that have big schools attached to them that the guitar department is 6 students.
Mhm.
So, and these are big name schools, and I'm not going to mention names, but, I went to Georgia State University, and I think there were 8 of us in the, with guitars in our hands,
Mhm.
and 900. And then I think you've got 53 or 56 guitar faculty.
That's right. Yeah,
Is it
that's
50,
correct.
53 or 56.
We are, I think, right now at 54. So right in the
54.
middle. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so anybody that's put together an organization of any kind of size can appreciate that. And then when you now the old joke is, how many guitar players does it take to change a light bulb?
Mhm.
Well, it takes
I
one.
think all of them.
Yeah, it takes 1 to change the light bulb and 9 to say that ain't shit. I could have done it better. So
Right.
you put 56 of those guys and girls in one facility, and everybody getting along, which is what Howard mentioned to me today. Howard Paul is the president and CEO of Benedetto Guitar, by the way, for the people that don't know. What Howard said, he said the fact that place has maintained the faculty, and these people have been there as long as they've been is incredible. He said every one of them is an institution in their own right. And Larry, that says a lot about you, because you were there directing that a long time. And your predecessor, if I'm not mistaken, this guy.
Yeah.
Yep, Bill Leavitt is his. I've got all 3 of these books, by the way. I want to tell you, I should get a round of applause, and the crowd goes crazy. So that says a lot about your organization and what you're doing. Now, unless you've been living under a rock, if you're a musician, the Berkeley School is, that's the top of the line. I mean, I think everybody pretty much says that's kind of where it's going, or that's where it's been for ever and ever and ever. I want to talk about one thing really quickly. So you identify yourself, everybody calls you or thinks of you as a jazz school, but you don't really identify yourself as a jazz school. You want to speak to that a little bit? Somebody?
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. I think one of the strengths of the guitar department is we're the most stylistically diverse guitar department in the world. We really respect all the styles equally. So while jazz was the foundation,
Right.
I think there's so much valuable information, and there's so much valuable aesthetic and art and all of the collaborative and improvisational and just the fretboard knowledge that goes into jazz and the history of it is so foundational. And then if you take what we love about that and value about it and you apply it to every style, that's really what we have. So we're not a jazz school. We do have jazz as a foundational element of our program, and now that's expanded to every style. And I think you can really see that in the faculty and the alumni that come out, and the way that we all treat each other is not that like jazz is a height and everything
Right.
else is following. It's that every style is equally valued. And I think that's something really unique.
Well, the three of you are exemplary of that. You're playing a nylon string with classical technique.
Mhm.
Cheryl's playing a thin line, with that whole thing going. And Larry's playing arch tops, old school arch tops, if you will. I mean, the three of you are a perfect example of three diverse styles, sitting in the same, well, maybe not in the same room today, but, sitting in the same room. So that's exactly it. So the reason that we are here today is to talk about the Berkeley Guitar Theory book, Kim Perlak, curator. And before we dive into it from your end, I went through the book. I didn't play everything, of course. I don't have 20 years to devote to that, but I went through the book, and I mean, I've got a lot of books, and I've got books I don't own anymore because I gave them away. I used to be like a book junkie, What can I learn from this guy? What can I learn from that guy? And this is the most thorough approach I've ever seen, period, bar none. Everything is taken into account. If you can get yourself through this book, you flat out know the guitar. And the only thing I can compare it to, and people of a certain age will appreciate this, is Ted Green's chord chemistry. and I mean, chord chemistry, for people who don't know, was the most ungodly thing you've ever seen in your whole life. And every possible fingering in the sun of how to play every chord was in it, and it wasn't very practical, is my purpose. But the stuff that you've got here in this book is all stuff that pertains. It's systematically put together. It's beautifully conceived. I love it that you talk about dynamics, you talk about tone, you talk about I mean, everything under the sun that has to do with the guitar. So let's talk about this book a little bit. How it came to be, what its mission is, what you hope for it, who it's available to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So since Kim, you are the official, you don't go down as the author, you go down as the curator. Would you care to field that?
Absolutely. I think the curator is the perfect title, because this is our curriculum. So years ago, as Larry talks about in the book, Larry and Mick Goodrick and Rick Peckham, two other amazing professors at our school, got together and with the faculty and said, like, what is it that everyone should know, regardless of style? What would give you the heart of everything you need on the fretboard? And they made it into a thing we call the proficiency materials, where every semester you go through a certain amount of the vocabulary and you have to demonstrate it. And so when I became the chair in 2018, after being assistant chair for 5 years, we sat down again to go back through and just say, is this still relevant? Is this still everything everybody needs? What can we add to it? So we added quite a bit. And then we thought, well, the best way to get it in everybody's hands is to make it a book, so that everyone in our larger Berkeley community, so anyone who picks up the book, who's interested in the guitar and loves the guitar and wants to see what we do, they get it, and they get us talking them through it. This is what it is. And then when you're in your classroom in Berkeley, you bring it to your lesson, you can work through it. And so in order to have it really personalized, we had 15 of our faculty write etudes. How do you use this stuff? I'm using all these scales, like, what do I use it for? And of course, there's thousands of applications, but you can see one and you could see, oh, I use it here and I use it here in all the different styles. We thought that was valuable.
Oh,
We
yeah.
thought, like, what are the super fundamentals? What are the things that are like below the fundamental level that no one thinks about, but affect everything? How you breathe, how you hold the guitar, how you make a sound, like what are all the parameters of sound that go into crafting a note so that you sound like yourself? That kind of stuff was really fun. And it took us 5 years. And Cheryl came on as assistant chair from the faculty during that time. And so Larry and Cheryl and I were really working on it a lot. Mick Goodrick, before he passed away, was quite a part of that process, as were all the faculty. So you'll all appreciate, all of you who are like, well, I think of the modes this way, or I think of triads this way, or I think of arpeggios this way. We would sit in a room with your 55, 56 of us all together, and fight about what to call the modes. You know, what do you call the modes of this mode of the harmonic minor? And so I call it this, and we're like top two, you know, all through the pandemic, virtual meetings. One time I was sitting on a pumpkin in a field on a farm on my cell phone to get good reception, yelling about something about what you call the third mode of harmonic major, you know, and I learned a ton because I came all through my guitar education as a classical guitarist, not through the Berklee system. So my introduction was as assistant chair, and I'm just so honored and so proud to be with everybody. Like, we all work together, and this is such a great synthesis, I think, of what we value and care about, and hopefully will help players of
Nice.
all
Very
styles.
nice. No, that's great. Hey, Larry, since you, we're gonna dive into your brain because you were there at the beginning of all of this, I would guess. So why don't you?
Well, I was a student at Berkeley in 1967, and Bill Levitt had just written the first volume 1. And then my lessons were mimeographs. Remember the word mimeo?
Oh, yeah.
Mimeograph sheets of his second book, and we would go through that. I guess I want to just mention a couple things about style. At Berkeley, you're a guitar player. And if you're a performance major, there's no really such thing as a jazz performance major or a rock performance. It's a performance major. And one of the great things that happens at Berkeley is that students can take, maybe their interest at the beginning was jazz, but they might want to take a lesson, a semester or two with a teacher that is more R&B. And, or I know a couple of, shall I say, strong jazz students who wanted to take lessons with our heavy metal teacher, Joe Stump, to get that type of technique in their playing. So it's a place where you can get your own style. You know, you synthesize that. And actually, that's what the final exams and the proficiencies are things that we feel that everyone should know, no matter what style. Sure, at first people say, oh, they're doing a dominant 7 flat 9. This must be a jazz book, right? But we need these, it's harmony on the instrument. It scales what goes on a certain chord. Just playing scales for technique and learning the guitar is not a style-centered activity for learning. It is learning your instrument. And that is one of the basic things that Bill Levitt wanted to do. Before him, there was, now I forgot his name. Do you remember?
Jack.
Jack Peterson, sorry. Jim Peterson.
Jack Peterson.
Not Jim.
But Jim's a great player.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, he started the program, didn't write any books or curriculum, but he was, everyone at Berkeley were, from the beginning of, I guess, the guitar department, wanted students to learn the instrument and to play. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for saying it. You know, we at Jazz Guitar Today did not want to call the magazine Jazz Guitar Today, but Express Yourself on Guitar Today just didn't quite roll off the tongue.
You got it, right.
You know, and we had to come up with something that defined some kind of a genre that we could get in. But that basically what we're trying to do, which is in harmony with what you guys are trying to do, is express yourself on the instrument, whether it be a nylon string, whether it be a solid body, a Strat, a Tele, or 335, or the like, or any one of the different art shops. It's how do you express yourself on this instrument today? You know, and that's what I'm hearing you talk about, and that actually makes me feel pretty good. You know, so jazz has a little bit of a problem, as you guys probably are aware. When the top jazz player in the world, and I'm not going to mention his name, but for a long, long time had a lot of pop records. That should be a hint. Told a friend of mine not to name his jazz club a jazz club. He said, because you'll kill it. And people just shy away from that. And then Rick Beato, who you guys probably all know, he's the big online guy. He said if he puts jazz in the name of any of his videos, it knocks it down. I think at the time he told me 20% of what it would be if he just called it anything else. So jazz has a way to go. And so one of the things that we're trying to do here at the magazine is try to not make jazz a 4-letter word, even though ironically it is. And to change the language around jazz and to change the language around expressing yourself on the instrument. So for me to hear you guys say that and to make that part of your mission statement, I feel like we're on the right trail with all of that. Cheryl, what have you got to say, girl? I should say woman.
Well, first I'm going to show you how awesome the book looks for all the people.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Well, I have to say, for me, this was really, I'm very honored to be here always. I was a student. I also was a student of Berkeley, and I went through the proficiencies. And when I was a student here, William Levitt was the chair, and Larry was the assistant chair. And so when students come in and they're coming in their first year and they're nervous and they're curious what's going on, and just say, well, I went through this too. I had to come in and do this proficiency or final exam, and I can attest to how thorough, and really it gives you, as we say, I always say to the students, we call it the proficiency because these are all these great guitarists of all styles and just masters of the instrument got together and said, these things that we're asking you to do, you need to be proficient on the instrument, to be professional on the instrument, and to become excellent on the material is here. You can take it and turn it in, as we're saying, like stylistically, it can be anything. And depending on how deep you want to go with it, you can become great. And I mean, we have all these amazing alum to show for that, and all genres that are really top great players. So for me to come in here, as I came in as assistant chair, and Kim said, hey, we're putting this book together. To me, it was an important moment for me to think like, wow, okay, I'm going to be a part of this. And, I have an etude in it, and, that's really exciting and really an honor. So, and, to work with Kim and Larry, their knowledge as educators and guitarists and musicians, it means a lot to me.
Well, yeah, that's fantastic, and it should. Well, there's a couple of things that I want to say about you specifically, because we've interviewed you a couple of times, and you're always fun. Love talking to you. But one of the things that I really love about you is you're a player. You practice 6 to 9 to 10 hours a day, on your own instrument.
You could keep that legend going, sure.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Now, this is true, okay? I'm not that wasn't true, but this is true. So Frank Vignola is at Birdland, and he invited you to play for a guitar night. And you were there with Pasquale Grasso, who's one of my favorites, and you and Frank, and when he introduced you, he did not give you the gratuitous from Berkeley School, Berkeley College, and all that. You're just Cheryl Bailey, the guitar player. So there are some, I'm not talking about anybody here that I'm talking to in this group, but there are some places where the title and the moniker and all of that seems to lead, they lead with that, oh, I'm from here, I'm from there, I'm from there. There was no even mention of the fact that, you're who you are at Berkeley. You're just a great guitar player. And that's quote unquote. And Frank said, one of my favorite guitar players, I can go back and quote the introduction. One of my favorite guitar players, Cheryl Bailey. And I thought, that felt really good to me. I'm not even you. That felt really good to me for you, actually, which is really great. So, and all three of you are real players. You're not just administrators or teachers and all of that. You guys, really play. Larry, I watched probably 6, 8 of your performance videos, not your instructional videos, but of your performance videos this morning. Kim, I saw you playing The Lake and a few other pieces, and you guys, you know, you know, you practice what you preach, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's fantastic. And I was telling the story that I once took classical guitar lessons from a guy who taught at a university here close by, and a guy that got his 4-year degree. Now, this guy studied with Andre Segovia. A guy got his 4-year degree from him. He said, you know, the whole time that I studied with him, I never saw him touch a guitar, not even move it from point. Never saw him play a guitar. And you know, you guys are real players. So my hat's off to all three of you.
Well, Bob, I think what's important about that is that we are very passionate. It's not just, hey, do this because we say so. We love the instrument, we love playing, and we love connecting through the instrument as performers, which keeps us alive, our creativity, but also to share that with our students is very important, because the whole thing about this is this material goes through, can be applied to any style. We want to be able to embody that for them, like, oh, how do you use this? Well, you use it like this, and with that authority, but also that love and passion behind. It's not just a bunch of digits and numbers and shapes to us. It's something that's a living canon.
Well, before I go back to the book for 1 second, I want to ask this question, because after all, you are a college. And you do have students. Having been in college, as you know, studying jazz guitar in my 60s, which was a lot of fun, by the way. Let's get away from the book for a second. What should somebody who wants to go to the Berkeley School, obviously apply, but what should they be able to play when they get here? How do they impress you? What's the process? What do you expect from them? I know these are big questions, but, for those kids that are 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and like me, 60, and now 70, what should they expect? And what does that look like coming in? I mean, what they sit down for the first time with their instructor, let's say, well, if you can walk us through getting in, and then the second thing is, what should they expect? How what's that going to look like? What's that going to feel like in that first year?
I think one thing that's important to really know about that is that Berkeley, you don't want to try to impress anyone in terms
of
like what you think we want to hear. What we want to hear is you. And that's really true. And it goes back to your thing about changing the light bulb with 56 guitarists. The only way that works is because we all have this culture here of we're always trying to get better. We're always learning. We're perpetual students as faculty. So we're interested in your whole process. So when you come in to audition, the book is really going to help. So we'll get into what you can start working on as we talk more about the book. But knowing your fretboard, so knowing, where the notes are, is a really good, important thing. For your style, we want to hear you play a piece of music that you love, and we want to hear how you will play it. Not like how you think, oh, this is the seminal recording of this thing, and I'm going to sound like this person. We want to hear you sound like you. We want to hear how you've developed your own sound and your tone. And we want to know that you've also explored the materials behind that piece of music. So if it involves scales and chords, do you know what those scales and chords are? And so you have a kind of an understanding of that connection with the fretboard. And then, so in the audition, what happens is you come in and you play your prepared piece. There's 2 Berkeley musicians. There are 2 faculty members listening to you, and they're really listening for you to sound beautiful and sound great as you. And then they're going to take you through a few questions. They'll ask you, hey, can you play us a scale? Can you play us this, like something that relates to what you just played? Or can you make this chord and move it? And how about if you close your eyes and I'm going to play something, and here's your start note. Now you try to play what I played. And it's not to trick you. It's just to see, like, what happens if you don't know what to expect in a musical situation? Like, are you open to it? Could you jump in and try it? You know, then they'll put some music in front of you to read, and they'll say like, hey, can you read the chords on this chart? You know, so it would be a good idea. Like they don't trick you. They'll send you stuff in advance. Here's the type of thing we're going to ask you.
Right.
You know, could you read this melody? And they just want to see, like, did you look at the materials before you came? So like, because you know why? Because we think of you as a young professional. So that tells us, will you look at the chart for my gig?
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's all just like, what would you do if you
Yeah.
got thrown? What would you do? Could you come in and like be nervous, but take a deep breath and just like show us who you are on the
Right.
instrument? That's
Well,
what we care about. Because when you get here, you have to imagine it's really big, right? So
yeah.
to make it feel small, you have to find connections and you have to be able to ask for things and ask for help. So that takes a lot of confidence, right? Like in order to say, when you're in an environment where you feel like people are listening to you, in order to say, hey, I could use some help with this, takes a lot of courage and self-awareness. So we're sort of looking for that from the jump, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's what you have to do to prepare. And it sounds like it's easier to prepare than if we said, here's a sheet of things you have to memorize, but it's actually a little bit harder. You have to get to know yourself a little bit more as a
Right.
musician. So
Right.
that's what we're looking for, because we want you to keep doing that. Like the thing that I said by accident one time that I keep saying is, you have to go deep to be free. You have to, if you want to be free and be expressive, you have to go as deep as you can into the instrument. And we're looking for how much depth that you've gone on your own. And then we want to help you go deeper when you get here.
Man, I gotta tell you something. That's the perfect phrase for it. You got to go deep to be free. I'm an
Mhm.
actor, and I study acting as well as I did 2 auditions this morning. And you can only be good after you know everything there is to know about the part that you're playing, because then you can be free. So that's profound. That's very profound what you just said. Thank you for that.
Oh, welcome.
Cheryl,
I
Larry,
wanted to something.
go ahead. Larry, go ahead.
Okay. I think for people auditioning, the first impression is the important impression. And that's your performance piece. You're asked to do a performance piece. And what Kim says is perfect is I've auditioned people that try and do a jazz piece, and we look at their background and it's, more rock and solo guitar maybe. And you're in the audition and you say, well, why did you pick this piece? And they say, well, I thought you would want to hear this. We want to hear you, right? And one of the things that we all listen for is time feel. When you're playing, whether it's with a recording or with the teacher or just yourself, we look for control of the instrument, of what you're playing. So I think time feel is very important, and knowing, and if it's a certain style, showing that you know the style somewhat, that you know what's expected, what are some phrases or phrasing type in that style. A blues player, we gave a scholarship to a blues guitarist. Well, what, they only play blues? Well, this person nails it. This person shows what they can do on the instrument. And the other thing that I want to say about the audition, it's almost like a lesson, that it's preparing you for when you come to Berkeley. You find out what the teachers are looking for and what the values are that they're looking at.
Well, whatever it is you're doing, Cheryl, do you want to weigh in on that?
I think they said it great. I mean, really, that's where we want to hear you and nurture what you do and help you go deeper with it.
Well, obviously you're doing something right, because the proof's in the pudding. So before we say goodbye, you want to get back to the book for a second? Is there anything about the book specifically that you would like to mention? Can anybody buy it? How do they get it? If they want help with instruction, is there online help? In other words, I'm just throwing stuff out there. So, somebody in Kansas buys it, gets the book, and they're struggling with it, and they can't get to school at Berkeley, maybe they've got a career or something like that. Is there any way for them to study the book online? I mean, is there any process for that at all?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the book itself is a book for life. So the first thing you want to remember is that it's not one of those things where you're going to go through this in 6 months,
No,
right?
you're not. I
It
promise.
really
Let
is.
me just say this. Let me say this, Kim. Let me just say this. You are not going to get through that book in 6 months. You're probably not going to get through that book in 6 years unless you're there full time as a student.
Right.
So, but that being said, go ahead.
And no, that's really great, Bob, that you said that, because it's meant to go alongside your lifelong development. Right.
Yeah.
So it's all the material that you're going to need, but it is curated. So we're telling you, okay, this is how we use it here. This is what we hope that you do with it. So anybody can buy it. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it online from Berkeley Press. So it's a Berkeley Press Hal Leonard publication. If you're here in Boston, you can come visit us at the guitar department and go to the bookstore. Now, if you want to study guitar at Berkeley and you're not a student at the Boston campus or one of the global partners as a college student, there are ways to do it. Number one, we have a week-long intensive called Guitar Sessions every summer, and anybody can come of any age above 14 and up. And so we do have adult students there. And the other thing is you can study with us through Berkeley Online. And all three of us teach there. And I think about 25 of our faculty teach for Berkeley Online. And you can start, I do the beginning guitar class. I teach that, I wrote that. And then we have all the different styles represented. And so all the material in this book is part of the curriculum of all the Berkeley. So Berkeley Online. And then if you're in Europe, whatever Berkeley Valencia offers, and the different global partners in other countries. So there's a lot of opportunity. I'll say that there is like a very entry level guitar class. If you want to get your feet wet, that's free. That's like a Berkeley beginning guitar class that's free. And then the rest of it you can register for, and there's scholarships available through Berkeley Online. You can just Google Berkeley Online and jump in.
Excellent. Is there a trailer video for the book? You know
I
anything
don't
about
think,
that?
yeah. Oh, wait, Cheryl, tell them about
Well,
Coffee Talk.
this is something we're gonna develop, so stay tuned. I mean, we have a big, just Berkeley Guitar Department is our social media handle, and we have
Right.
Twitter, we have YouTube and all stuff. So we will be developing this over the next couple months, excerpts from the book by the faculty that wrote them, or little discussions. So just, follow us and you'll get some background and maybe at least some chance to interact with us there through,
Excellent. And the cost of the book is how much?
$25.
$25. You know what?
Yeah.
I mean, it's $25,000 at least in educational materials. You go
Yeah.
through all that, at least that, at least that. So it's definitely worth the $25. I will say something about the book before we say goodbye, and that the fact that I loved that you got the part of the faculty to write the etudes and incorporate the concepts, because so many books don't do that very well, or so many systems, they say, well, here is a here's a Phrygian scale, and you need to know this all, and all that. Well, what do I do with that? Well, and you've actually got it, you've actually shown people this is an example of what can happen, with this scale, and where you can use it, and how we suggest, all those kinds of things, which I think is brilliant. And I'm very, very glad you did that. So anything else you guys want to mention before we go?
I just want to say that, in the foreword to the book, I ended the foreword by saying to everyone, welcome to the guitar department. And we really mean that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's hard to believe sometimes when you think you have this many guitar players in a room or in a community together, but we really want to connect with everyone through the materials, because we feel like we have this resource in each other. And if we can help you do what you want to do on the instrument, come join us. And Larry always said, when someone would say, oh, at Berkeley, I work for you, he would always say, no, we work together. And I think that we feel that way in every aspect. And this is just a reflection of that. So welcome, everybody.
Well, yeah, Larry, that goes on what Howard said. He said you were a really sweet guy. I don't know what he meant by that, but he said you're a really sweet guy.
Send them the money.
Well, let me say this is the last thing before I actually say goodbye, and that is that. So the Berkeley College is, there's no question about it. You guys are the high watermark worldwide. I mean, you among musicians, whenever you mention that name, everybody knows what that standard is. You know, some people would say Rolls Royce or Mercedes or Lamborghini, Ferrari, whatever benchmark that holds for you. Yet you three specifically, who are in charge of this thing, you know, this guitar department for sure, are three of the most accessible human beings I've ever met that have the kind of responsibilities that you guys have. And that is a big deal. So my hat's off to you. Congratulations. It's beautiful to see the humanity that exists with the three of you. So with that, I'm going to say Bob Baker for Jazz Guitar Today with Kim Perlak and Cheryl Bailey and Larry Bayonne from Berkeley College, talking about their new book. I highly recommend that you get it and just start messing with it. Just start messing with it. Let it get to you, because if you want to know about the guitar and you want to know how to, but now I'm talking about jazz, you want to know about the guitar, there is nothing that isn't in that book. So there you go. Ladies, gentlemen, have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Bob Baker for Jazz Guitar Today. See you guys later. Bye-bye now.